Good morning and welcome to our Saturday video. This is a video that's not going to make everybody happy, but it's something that is an interesting point of discussion. And I think by the time we finish the video, the people who seeing the topic aren't very happy. Maybe they'll be less unhappy. But anyway, yeah, I'm wearing my Watertown jersey as yesterday, of course, they went from this to this. A lot of discussion online as far as was that the right move? Yeah, I don't know. Change is never easy. Change doesn't come easily. So, yeah, usually the first reaction is going to be one of disdain. Whenever any team does a rebrand, whether it's like in Biloxi, they do a whole new name, or Watertown, they redo the whole color scheme and the logo. It is what it is. All right, let's talk today about why is the SPHL by most pundits considered to be the better or the stronger of the two single A hockey leagues. It's going to go through a list. We're going to break this down, and you'll see, there's some categories in red. And I feel like just from a perception standpoint, and this is a subjective perception, that one league's a little bit farther along than the other. All right. So, all right, we're going to go through this category. There's a list of comparisons in the middle. SPHL data on this side, the Fed on this side. All right, so first of all, the SP is the older of the two leagues. They've been around for 22 years. Were founded in 2004, as opposed to the Fed that was founded in 2010, so 16 years. So the SPHL has 6 years of experience, not just with on-ice experience, but also business experience, corporate experience, sales experience, all these things that go into running a league behind the scenes. The league size, SPHL hasn't varied that much. They've had as few as 6 teams, as many as 11, and they currently have 10, and have had 10 now for, this will be the 3rd full year. The FPHL, of course, they're up to 14. They have varied inside. They started as 6. SPHL started as 7. The FPHL, they've been as few as 4 and as many as the current 14, which we had 14 last year and this year. All right, capacity of arenas. The SPHL tends to play in bigger arenas. Facilities are typically a little more up to date. You have some nice arenas in the Fed. Are they the most state-of-the-art facilities? Well, with the exception of maybe Athens, probably not. But anyway, capacity, smallest arena in the SPHL, 4,100. Largest is 9,500. The FPHL varies from 900, that of course being Indiana, and 9,150 is the attendance for the Mississippi Coast Coliseum. Development League. They're development league for, well, this is what really stands out. We're going to talk about this a little bit more as we get farther down the list. The SPHL is development site for the ECHL. They've had one person go to the NHL. That's Scott Darling, who ended up playing for the Chicago Blackhawks. The FPHL, they're primarily development league for the SPHL, as much as they don't want to say that. As much as the executive board says, no, SPHL and FPHL are on the same footing. Well, in theory, yes. In practicality, no. They are a development league for the SPHL. The overwhelming bulk of call-ups that happen with Fed players are to the SPHL. You have a few to the ECHL, not many. Justin Portillo, he just signed a contract with the Cincinnati Cyclones this last week. So, yeah, there are a few that end up getting the call up to the ECHL, but it's not that common. The SPHL has better established relationships with the ECHL. Now, remember, both of these leagues are independent. They're not part of an official feeder system. So they have to build relationships one by one with the other leagues that they want to communicate with. The SPHL has had a relationship with the ECHL, the team to team, owner to owner, coach to coach. They've had that for many, many years. The Fed is just starting to develop relationships with ECHL markets. And I think that is a big key. That's something that's been discussed in the Board of Governors meetings, that, hey, we need to start building relationships with ECHL clubs. So, they need a player. Yeah, we're here too. It's not just the SPHL. And that's starting to build up. We're starting to see a few people from Fed organizations have reached out to ECHL. Hey, let's work together. So that's in the process of building. All right, average call-ups per team per year. On average, the SPHL has about 10 call-ups each team. Peoria, Fayetteville, Macon, whatever. They have about 10 call-ups to the ECHL per year. The Fed, it's 7 on average, and most of those go to the SP. Again, you do have a couple that go ECHL. There were 2 times last year where we had a brief call-up to the AHL for a game. And some players from the SPHL also get that brief call-up from the AHL. Okay, so now we start getting into some more nitty-gritty stuff. The salary cap. This is what helps separate the SP from the Fed a little bit. All right, $6,500 per week. Your roster, Evansville's roster, they're paid out $6,500 per week. That's an average. It's not, what everybody makes, but it's an average of $340 per player. Of course, they get their housing, they get their per diems, so they're not just living on $340, but it's better than what is currently offered at the Fed level. $3,900 per week this year. That was upped a little bit. That's an average of about $200 a player. Not as good. It's technically $195, but $200 looks better. So now, this is one of the discussions I want to mention before I go any further. I want to publicly thank Mitchell Griggs. I collaborated with him. He season ticket holder for the Knoxville Ice Bears. He's followed the SP for years and years and years, and knows a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So I collaborated with him, as I know quite a bit of stuff behind the scenes, operation wise, etc. With the Fed. Mitchell knows a lot about the SP. So he and I compared notes, and I told him I'm not gonna ambush the SP, because I think he might have been worried about it. And this, no, I want to have a fair look at both leagues. All right. So anyway, thanks to him for that. But he asked me straight out, so why does the Fed pay so many players under the table? It's the worst kept secret in sports. The Fed pay players under the table. That means Joe Schmo, he gets his $175 a week on the books, but he could also be getting a couple $100 per week under the table for just helping the team do different things, getting out in the community, all that kind of stuff. So it happens. Okay, some players, there are a handful of Fed players that make a very good living playing in the Fed. And that's why we have seen a bit of an exodus with SP players coming to the Fed, because they're going to get their $250 a week plus, and there are a handful that are making a big plus. I won't name names. I won't name teams. It happens. It's part of the reality, and part of that is because the FPHL wants to get the better players so that they can bridge the gap better between the two leagues. All right. So it happens. All right. Minimum salary on the books, $250 per player in the SPHL. It's $150 the starting level for the kids who are just coming out of college, and this is their first professional playing experience. They're going to be making $150. Average operating budget for the organizations is a lot higher in the SP. It's anywhere from $750,000 to about $1.1 million per year to run the club. Pay the lease, buy the uniforms, buy the equipment, pay for their housing, corporate sponsorships, all that kind of stuff. It's a bigger budget, $450,000 to $850,000 for the FPHL. All right, sleeper buses. How many teams have sleeper buses? Well, in the SP, all of them. This is one of the areas that has been a big concern as the Fed expands its footprint. Don't we need sleeper buses? Yeah, you do. There are now 2 teams that have sleeper buses, Topeka and Port Huron. I think that number is going to grow as we start to fill out more kind of in the middle. And because right now, there's a lot of distance between Topeka and Danbury. We need to fill in some spots in the middle, and that will happen. But teams are going to figure out that they need sleeper buses, whether they own them or charter them, whatever. All right, so how many teams have folded in the history of each league in the mid-season? For the SPHL, it's only 2. For the FPHL, it's 5. There's not as much stability in the FPHL with ownership groups, with money. It's sad but true. 3 teams almost folded mid-season last year. All right. Ken Andrews talked when he was introduced as the new owner of the Port Huron Prowlers. He talked about how when he took over in January last year, the team was literally 5 days from folding. Motor City. Dashers. We know what happened there. They weren't paying their league dues. They weren't paying the players. They weren't paying the arena. They almost folded. The HC Venom almost collapsed in November, and they were bought by Parker Muscal, who helped carry them through the year, pay all the bills. Almost 3 in 1 year. Not a good thing. The league has learned its lesson and is doing a much better job now as far as vetting ownership groups. All right, officiating crew in each game. It's only a 3-man crew. In the SPHL, it's 4-man crew in the FPHL. Now, I know you Fed fans, you're probably your first thought is, yeah, we have a 4-man crew, but they suck. Well, if you go to a site like SPHL Fans on Facebook, they're complaining just as much about the officials as we are about our officials. All right, so it's not a Fed thing. You know, in this day of instant everything on the internet, everybody's complaining about officiating. Everybody thinks officiating should be better. You know, they're making two mistakes. Well, yeah, we have the benefit of hindsight because we can take a video of a play, post it on Facebook and say, look, right there. See, they messed up. Okay, the game is so fast. The officiating hockey is one of the most difficult vocations that I can think of. It is not easy. All right, anyway, on we go. Games played per season. SPHL upped their schedule for this upcoming year to 58 games. They were 56. They are now 58. The FPHL 56. Playoff format. I think the Fed has an edge here. All series are best of three. You get 8 teams in the playoffs in the SPHL. They're all best of threes. And it kind of feels like hit and run playoffs. Yeah, what just happened? The FPHL, you have your play-in game, you have your 2 best of 3 series, and then you have your finals best of 5. I think it's a much better setup. Takes more time, yes, but anyway. Parity edge, meaning are all teams on equal footing? In the SP, yes, I think so. Even Peoria compared to Macon, all right, they're on the same equal footing. They have the same opportunities to make a playoff push. Part of why is because typically there aren't players being paid under the table in the SP. Now, there are a couple of ringers here and there. There are. But in the FPHL, we know almost every team has ringers or players being paid, I can't say that, under the table. A couple teams can't afford to do that. Dashers couldn't do that last year. Venom couldn't do that last year. It's not every case. And on that basis, because of that, you have the haves and have-nots. You have teams that you know are going to struggle mightily. Like last year, we knew even before the season began that the Dashers were going to struggle big time. We didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was. But then you have teams like Athens and Columbus and Binghamton and teams that are able to help players out a little bit. There's a lot of separation. You have Binghamton winning 49 out of 56 games, and you have the Dashers winning 3. And we're looking at that again this year. Hopefully not quite as dramatically. All right. Visas that are offered by the league. All right, I'm running long, so I got to move this along. Full 12-month visas can be obtained for European players or Canadian players to play in the SP. In the FPHL right now, it's 6 months. And that's because the Fed has filed as a non-profit or not-for-profit organization. And so players cannot, if a player comes from Germany, play in the Fed, they can't declare income by immigration rules. Now, the FPHL has put in an application into INS, Immigration Naturalization Service, to be able to extend 12-month leases. So it hasn't been said, but I am assuming that means that there is going to be a change to the status, that they're not going to be not-for-profit. All right, I know. Teams are making money. How can they be not-for-profit? I wish I had an answer. Okay, streaming. Can't make it to the game. You want to watch the game on your device? Well, SPHL, you can do that. Got to pay Flow Hockey $30 a month. free for the FPHL. We will be having a video later this month talking about the future of live streaming. We had all the problems last year with YouTube, with teams losing their channels. What's happening next? We'll talk about that. That's in a few weeks. All right. Playing systems. When you hire a coach, are they implementing a system for power plays, for penalty kills, for breakouts from your own zone into the attacking zone, for circling the puck in the offensive zone? Do teams have systems? All the teams in the SP have a playing system. Some in the FPHL. All right, scouting. Okay, scouting is done individually by team in the SPHL. Right now in the Fed, it's a combination of team and league. Some teams opt to do everything by themselves. Some teams need some help, and so they obtain the services of Dave Smith, who is the head of scouting for the FPHL. And well, no, I'm not going to say that. Okay. Official rules. You open up a rule book for the SPHL. You open up a rule book for the FPHL. All right. This aligns with USA Hockey. This aligns with the NHL. I think it's a better system. I think the NHL system is better as far as specifics with the rules. Case in point, are banana blades, majorly curved sticks allowed? Yes, in the SP, which banana blades long ago in the 1960s and 70s in the NHL, they were deemed to cause more problems than they solved. Yes, players could get better shots, they could boost their scoring chances, also led to a lot of injuries. Yes, SPHL can have banana blades. No, in the FPHL, there is a regulation as far as how far your stick curvature can be, and it aligns with the NHL. All right, style of play. It's a little bit of a faster pace. Passing is better. There are more consistent passes made in the SP. You have a higher scoring, typically, style of play in the FPHL. A little bit more freewheeling. It's a matter of your preference. Some people prefer a more defensive focus, but faster. Some prefer, your 6-5 games. So it all depends. Ownership, much more stable in the SP. There's not as much ownership change. The ownership groups are more soluble, a lot more stable. This is improving. We're improving the situation, but we have had some doozies, haven't we? Case in point, Pat Manning last year with the Venom. Whoa. Okay, so we get to the end of all this and we say, okay, so we've kind of seen this league's better in this area, this league's better in this area. What is holding back the Fed? Why do most pundits say, the SP is better? Well, reputation. SP has a much better reputation in the hockey community than the Fed. Now, I will say that the FPHL is taking steps to improve the reputation, but that takes a long time to get over. It's going to take time before more people recognize, hey, maybe these two guys are on equal footing. They're working hard to change the narrative. And I think some of the things like we talked about earlier, the visa situation, the haves and have-nots, less separation between that. And Dave Smith is working tirelessly I don't agree with his methods. I don't agree with a lot of the decisions he makes, but he is trying. I will give him that. Dave Smith is trying to make sure that the most available players, the best available players, are getting fed into the FPHL. All right. So, yeah, in the end, we can say the SP has a stronger, more professional style of play, but the gap has narrowed significantly over the last 4 years. You watch a game in the FPHL from 2019 or 2020 before COVID. Yeah. And then you watch a game from this last season. Big difference. SP has maintained a good level of play, but I don't think they're necessarily getting better. I don't think they're getting worse. Certainly not getting worse, but nonetheless, the FPHL has narrowed the gap in style play and with getting players in. Unfortunately, it's many times due to this method. But the common conception that the SP is the prime single A league is slowly changing. The beer league mentality that has existed so long for the Fed is not really reality anymore. But again, it takes time to shed that old reality. Huge steps have been made to attract better players, better play, have more parity, and a better level of professionalism behind the scene. That is the biggest thing. That old reputation is still out there. So right now, to sum this up, do I think the SP is the better league? I will concede that for the time being, but I think that these two leagues are much closer to each other than a lot of people would tend to believe. I've watched some SPHL games. I've watched a lot of Fed games. There's not that much of a difference. A little bit in the style of play again, but I think the league is getting better. So there we go. That hopefully that doesn't irritate too much the powers that be as far as my presentation of the two leagues head to head. If we had a series where SPHL teams were playing the Fed teams, I would love that. That would be awesome. I think the SPHL would win the majority of the games, 60 to 65% of the games, play head to head. But they're not winning them all. So anyway, there we go. Kind of like the old WHA against the NHL. First year of the WHA, the NHL was still way better. By the time you got to the last 2 years of WHA being in play, they were really good and they were recognized as on equal footing with the NHL. Unfortunately, financial difficulties held them back. All right. Anyway, I've rambled on long enough. I hope you enjoyed this. Hit like and subscribe. Make sure to follow me on Facebook. A lot of news happened this last week, so make sure you're staying up to date with what is going on in the FPHL by being on my Facebook page. And also, check out the Flash Audio Network. Links are on my Facebook page. All right, thank you all so much for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow with who are the best 5 teams all time in the FPHL. I'm Gary Ryan. We'll see you soon.